You wake before the sun, in that gray hush, when the stars have not yet loosened their hold on the sky, and the wind still smells of sleep and forgotten things. The air in the tent is warm from your breath, and as you stir, the woven wool shifts around you with a soft sigh. You move slowly, quietly, as though the silence of the morning were a sacred thing not to be broken too easily. The leather satchel waits beside you. Heavy with the sealed scroll, it cradles its weight familiar now, like a stone in your chest. You do not know what words lie within, only that they were pressed between ink and wax by a trembling hand far away, and they are not meant for you. You are only the bridge between two silences. You carry, but you do not read. That is the old rule. You rise and step barefoot into the dust, feeling the cool embrace of night still clinging to the ground.
Oh.
The dunes are dark with shadow, their edges softened by starlight. Our camel grumbles softly nearby, tied loosely to the central post, chewing on dried scrub with rhythmic patience. It knows the road better than you do. You feed it from your hand, the rough texture of its mouth brushing your skin, and in that moment you feel the quiet bond that years of travel have forged to wanderers, following the same thread across the endless loom of the desert. You wrap your robes tighter, layering against the cold that will soon yield to the burn of day. As you mount and turn east, the first trace of lavender unfurls across the horizon, thin and tentative, like a whispered promise. The dunes begin to breathe in color, gold, then blazing white. You ride into it steadily, the sand shifting beneath the camel's feet in long, deliberate strides. The sound is soft, like dry silk slipping past dry hands. No one speaks in the desert. There is only wind and your own breath, and sometimes the distant cry of something winged and wild. The land rolls on with no edge and no end, an ocean of gold that keeps its secrets well. You pass old bones, white as paper, half buried in drifts, remnants of camels, messengers, wanderers who lost their way or gave themselves to the sands. You look, but you do not stop. There is always something sacred about things left behind. By midday, the sun is a weight on your shoulders, relentless and white.
Oh.
Your scarf is drawn close across your face, the air you breathe filtered through its woven threads. The heat wraps around you like wet cloth, clinging, humming low beneath your skin. You do not speak. You do not think. You ride as one of the old ones dies on the horizon, heart quiet and steady. You stop when the shadows shrink to nothing, crouching beneath a low rock shelf that's marked on your memory, but not the map. There is a shallow pool here, hidden behind the Riza, a miracle of water, in a place that forgets it exists. You let your camel drink first, then fill your hands and press them to your cheeks. The coolness sends shivers through your teeth. You lie back in the narrow shade, the rock warm against your spine, and you close your eyes. Dreams come here, quick and strange, as if the desert itself weaves them into your resting thoughts. You see a child running across a tiled courtyard, a woman crying softly in a high window, a hand trembling as it seals a scroll with wax the color of dried blood. You do not know whose memories they are. They rise like smoke and vanish. When you wake, the shadows are long again, painted gold by the fading sun. You gather your things in silence. Your journey is not long now, perhaps 2 more days to the village at the edge of the date palms, where someone will be waiting or not waiting, or already gone. You do not ask, you only arrive. As you ride again, the sky melts into rose and blue, then deepens into indigo. The stars reappear like old companions, and the wind shifts. You smell smoke, faint and far, and the distant sweetness of something baking bread perhaps, or dates boiled into syrup. You pass a caravan resting for the night, huddled close around a dim fire. They do not call out. Messengers are left alone. They know better than to disturb the bearers of secrets. You set camp apart, nestled between 2 low ridges. The tent rises with the ease of long practice, its pegs driven deep into sand that yields like memory. You light no fire. Instead, you lie back against your pack, gaze tilted skyward. The stars blink slowly above you, and you trace them with your eyes, remembering names your grandfather taught you beneath another sky long ago. The archer, the lion, the dancer. You wonder if the stars remember him? Before sleep, you unwrap the satchel not to open it, but to press your hand against the sealed scroll. The wax is warm now, softened by the day's heat. You imagine it breathing, softly, like a heartbeat. Somewhere this message will crack open a silence, will fall into someone's hands and reshape their life. Joy or grief or anger, it is not yours to know. You are only the road between them. Tomorrow you will wake again before the sun, and the sand will welcome your footsteps like an old friend. And you will carry on as you always have, leaving no trace but the faint stirrings of dust, and the ghost of a shadow fading behind you. You sleep then in the stillness of the dunes, with the stars above and the secrets beside you, wrapped in wool and silence. You wake to the sound of dripping water, slow, steady, like a clock carved from stone. The air is thin here and cold, and edged with silence so deep it seems to live within your bones. Your breath forms soft clouds that curl in front of your face before fading, as if the mountain is exhaling with you. All around, the dark shapes of the high peaks rise like frozen waves. Still and ancient, their white-capped crowns catching the faintest light of morning. You stretch beneath your worn wool cloak, muscles tight from sleep and the long climb of yesterday. The ground beneath your bedding is uneven, but familiar coarse granite, smoothed by centuries of wind and footsteps. You feel each stone like a memory pressed into your skin. The cave where you slept is shallow, but sheltered, its mouth opening to the eastern ridge like a window cracked open to let in the dawn. Outside, the sky is beginning to change, no sun yet, only a pale blue shimmer softening the dark. The mountains are hushed, holding their breath. You move quietly, careful not to disturb this sacred hush. You've long learned how to listen to the mountain night's moods, its warnings, its gifts. You move as if you belong here. Perhaps now you do. Your satchel is waiting, just as you left it, with the wax-sealed letter tucked safely within its folds. The seal is unbroken, firm, and cold against your fingertips. You do not know the sender, but you remember his eyes watery and rimmed with red as he handed it over, his voice trembling as he said, "Only take it to her, please." No delay. There was something desperate in him, something unfinished. You pack your things in silence. Your boots are thick leather, worn to your shape over years of walking stone trails. And as you lace them tight, you feel the same quiet readiness settle over youth rhythm of journeying, the steady pulse of purpose. Outside, your mule snorts softly in the cold, its breath a white veil in the still air. It is loaded lightly, food, water, and the wrapped message. Just enough for the pass. The trail you follow is old. You know this by how it remembers your steps. Flat stones set by forgotten hands long ago form a path that hugs the mountain's edge, winding in and out of cliff faces like a thread through a sleeping giant's robe. Each footstep echoes faintly, softened by moss and snow. Lichen blooms along the edges, green-gray and feathered, and here and there, hardy wildflowers cling to cracks in the stone, their petals trembling in the morning breeze. The climb is steady and the air grows colder with each bend. You pull your cloak tighter, wrapping your scarf around your mouth. The wind picks up near the ridge, whistling between the rocks. And with it comes a scent you have always loved: pine resin, dry earth, and the sharp, clean breath of snow. High above, a bird circles, dark against the brightening sky, silent as a prayer. You pass old waymarkers' piles of stacked stones shaped like small pyramids. Some are crowned with scraps of cloth faded from sun and storm. Pilgrims and couriers alike leave these behind, offerings to the mountain's favor. You place a small white stone on one as you pass, pressing your fingers to its cool surface. For luck, for safe crossing, for the one waiting on the other side. At midday, the sun appears at last, a pale disk hovering just above the ridge. Its warmth is faint, but enough to melt the ice from your shoulders and make the snow hiss softly beneath your boots. You stop near a spring, its water emerging from the rocks as if the mountain itself were weeping. You drink from your cupped hands, the cold biting your throat, then rest beside your mule, sharing a crust of bread and a few dried berries. The quiet here is absolute. No voices, no bells, only the crackle of stones shifting under weight and the sighing of distant wind. Your mind drifts, as it always does when you travel alone. You think of the letter you carry, not its contents. You will never know those, but what it might mean. A confession, a farewell, a warning, a promise. You've delivered hundreds of letters in your time, and yet each one feels like a new thread in the web of invisible stories spun across these lands. You are the weaver's needle, moving through lives you do not touch. You remember a time years ago now, when a woman opened a letter in front of you. Right there at her door, her hands shaking. She had read only a few words before her knees gave out. You caught her before she fell, your arms full of grief you could not name. That was when you began to wonder what weight your footsteps truly carried. By late afternoon, clouds have begun to gather. The peaks ahead blur with mist, and the wind carries snow on its breath. You quicken your pace, guiding the mule carefully along the narrowing trail. The mountain does not wait. You know these storms, how suddenly they come, how easily they erase paths and thoughts alike. You reach the pass just as the first snow begins to fall in earnest, flurries spinning like ash from an unseen fire. You take shelter in a shepherd's hut, abandoned for the season, its low stone walls still standing against the wind. Inside, it smells of old smoke and lichen and wool. You build no fire, but you wrap yourself in thick blankets and sit near the small window, watching the snow settle like a breath on the world. The mule munches quietly nearby, content in the hush. As night folds in, you take out the letter, not to open, not to read, but simply to hold. You trace the edges of the paper through the oilskin wrapping, feel the weight of its presence in your palm. Somewhere, someone waits for these words. Someone paces a floor or stares out a window, thinking of what was written, fearing what will be revealed. You are the stillness between their thoughts, the silence before the page is turned. You sleep to the sound of snow falling, a soft, persistent rhythm that calms even the deepest worries. Outside, the mountain keeps its secrets, and within the folds of your blanket, you dream of winding paths and stone bridges, of voices carried across ridges by wind, of messages that arrive in time, just in time. And tomorrow, you will wake again, and the path will stretch before you like a memory calling you home. You wake with the sound of frog song in your ears, gentle, rhythmic, like the soft tapping of wooden drums across still water. Dawn rises in mist and amber, and the river, wide and slow as time itself, breathes fog into the air, turning the world into a soft blur of green and silver. You blink the sleep from your eyes and sit up slowly, the reeds whispering just beyond your tent, their long, thin blades swaying like dancers swaddled in dew. The night had been cool, and your blanket still holds the damp edge of the river's breath. You rub your hands together, feeling the stiffness in your fingers, the old ache in your knees. 1,000 steps have brought you here, down from the hills and into this watery world where the road is not of dust or stone, but mud and roots and winding water. The barge waits where you moored it, tethered to a willow whose long green arms trail into the current like they are reluctant to let go. Your cargo is simple, a scroll wrapped in oilcloth, sealed with red wax and tied with silk thread. Not from a nobleman nor a soldier, this message comes from a quiet house near a temple, where an old scribe with clouded eyes dictated each word, while his daughter wrote carefully beside him. She had looked at you then, not with fear or reverence, but curiosity. Her ink-stained fingers brushed yours as she handed you the scroll. "He wants it to reach his brother," she said, "though they've not spoken in 20 years. You nodded. You did not ask why. Messengers never ask. You check the knots on the satchel, then lower your bag into the boat. The wood is worn smooth by years of travel, and the oar rests across its length like a familiar thought. You step in, feeling the gentle rock of the current beneath your feet, and push off from the shore. The water catches you at once, cradling your journey with a patient hand. The river curves like a sleeping serpent, wide and glassy, its banks lined with thick jungle and sleepy fishing huts. Drift past mangroves whose roots claw into the earth like frozen lightning. Beneath their shadows, turtles slide lazily into the depths. Birds call overhead, high whistles and wet clucks, songs without names. Somewhere distant, a monkey chatters, then falls silent. The whole land seems to be listening. You row only when the current slows, letting the river do most of the work. It knows the way better than you do. The hours pass in golden slowness. A dragonfly lands on your sleeve. You watch it shimmer blue, green, impossibly delicate before it flits off, leaving nothing but the echo of its wings. By midday, the sun has risen high and warm, laying a bright cloak over everything. The sweat beads on your neck, your back, your temples, and you dip a rag into the water, press it against your skin. The coolness is a balm. You pull into the shade of a tree whose roots grip the riverbank like ancient hands, and you eat a little bread, a bit of dried fish. The flavors are humble, but they hold the comfort of familiarity, like the low creak of wood or the scent of oiled leather. There is no village for many miles, no voices but your own thoughts, and yet you are not lonely. The river keeps you company in its way, murmuring softly against the hull, carrying the scent of distant flowers, the sharp tang of wet bark, the memory of rain. Think for a moment of the scribe's daughter, her quiet eyes, her careful script, the way her lips moved silently as she read each word aloud before sealing it. What might she have written tucked into that scroll? What grief? What hope? Sometimes you wonder if you are the only one who ever imagines the letters you carry, the voices they hold trapped inside. The afternoon brings cloud stall, towering things that rise like palaces across the sky. You hear thunder, distant and patient, and soon the wind shifts. The river's surface ripples, and the air grows heavy with the scent of rain. Pull a tarp over your bags, lash them tight. And keep to the middle of the channel, where the current stays steady and the trees cannot fall. The storm comes gently at first, soft needles of rain, cool against your face, tapping on the wood of the boat like a lullaby, then heavier, fuller, drumming the surface until the whole world is music. You keep rowing. The water rises, but slowly, and you know how to read its moods. This is not the kind of rain that angers the river, only feeds it. When the storm passes, the forest smells of wet earth and blooming things. The leaves glisten like they've been painted in oil. Birds emerge again, calling to one another through the branches, and frogs resume their chorus. You trail your hand in the water, feeling the pull of the current tug at your fingers. And you wonder how many of these creatures, these trees, have watched messengers come and go for generations. You wonder if the river remembers. As evening begins to settle, you reach the bend where you will stop. The village lies just beyond the far bank, tucked among reeds and woven huts, its rooftops thatched with palm and its fires beginning to glow with early cooking smoke. You tie the boat to a post, carved with spirals, an old blessing, and step ashore. Your boots sink slightly into the mud. The air is warm, thick with the scent of stew and wood smoke, and someone is singing softly nearby a lullaby or a prayer. You ask for the man by name. The villagers know him. One gestures toward a hut near the water's edge, and you walk there, each step slow and soft, as though approaching something fragile. When you hand him the letter, he hesitates. His hands tremble as he takes it, eyes flicking to the seal. "Is it from him?" he whispers, barely breathing. You nod once. He does not open it right away. You leave him there, standing in the golden light. Scroll clutched to his chest, his silence louder than the river behind you. You do not stay to see what words find him. You never do. You return to your boat, sit quietly as the frogs begin their nighttime songs again. The river glows in the fading light, and the stars begin to prick through the velvet sky. You rest your head against the wood, watching the moon rise silver and soft above the trees. Tomorrow, you will drift again. Another letter, another bend in the water, another set of hands waiting. But for now, the current is enough. The river is wide, the night is gentle, and you once more are the quiet between voices. You wake to the taste of dust on your lips, and the pale shimmer of dawn bleeding into the horizon like the thinnest spill of milk across cracked porcelain. The salt flats stretch before you in all directions, flat, endless, gleaming even in the softest light. It is like waking atop a frozen sea, but there is no water here and no cold. It's only salt and silence. You sit up slowly, feeling the stiffness in your joints, the ache of another night spent in stillness beneath the open sky. There is no tent, no need for one here. The wind comes too fast, too sharp, and the ground is too brittle to hold stakes. So you sleep in the open, your cloak wrapped tightly, your face turned to the stars. You dream in fragments of voices without faces, of distant bells, of the soft crunch of footsteps across dry earth. Your mule stands nearby, tethered to a stake wedged between two sun-split stones, its ears twitching with each whisper of wind. Its coat is streaked with dust, its saddlebags crusted with the salt that clings to everything out here. You rise and brush yourself off, feeling the fine grit settle into the folds of your robe. The morning is quiet but not still. The salt plains hum with a kind of subtle movement, the hiss of air over flatness. The soft pop of heat rising through the crust, the almost imperceptible crackling of a world that seems asleep but is always shifting. You check the message pouch first, out of habit. It hangs beneath your cloak, tight against your chest, where your heartbeat and the wind can guard it. A letter this time carefully wrapped in waxed silk, bound with a strip of embroidered cloth red and gold, with a sigil stitched near the edge. A merchant's hand, most likely, or a magistrate's. It doesn't matter. It never does. The message is not yours to know, only to carry. You eat a small handful of dates and a bit of dry cheese, drinking from the water skin sparingly. Water is life here too precious to waste. You have memorized every well across this plain, each one shallow and trembling at the edge of vanishing. You know which ones turn bitter after rain, and which are cold and sweet if drawn before sunrise. You mount slowly, not out of hesitation, but of reverence. The journey across this place is never hurried. There are no landmarks here, no roads. Only the pull of the sun and the patterns etched in your memory where the salt cracks in long broken lines, where the wind piles it into soft ridges, where even the sky looks a little different. You guide yourself by feel, by instinct, by something older than maps. The mule walks on, hoofs crunching softly across the crystalline surface. You become part of the rhythm. Step, breathe, shift. The world is wide and white and ringing, like the inside of a bell long after it has been struck. No birds, no trees. Only the low moan of wind and the echo of your own thoughts rising in slow spirals. By mid-morning, the sun burns hotter and the light plays tricks. You see shapes where there are none, ships with tattered sails, archways of bone, distant towers that ripple and vanish as you approach. The heat swells upward, turning the horizon to glass. You lower your head, focus on the mule's ears, on the sound of breath and movement, on the steady weight of the message pressing against your chest. You pass the old ruin just before noon. It is nothing more than a ring of stones now, half buried, half swallowed by salt. But you know the story, a rest station from centuries past, where travelers once tied their camels, shared dates, and left messages in clay jars hidden beneath loose stones. You pause here, not to rest, but to listen, to feel. The wind curls through the broken stones and carries with it something delicate like burnt cedar or the trace of incense long gone cold. You kneel and place a stone atop the others, a quiet gesture, not for luck, but for memory. For those who crossed before you, and for those who did not, you press on. The light sharpens. Shadows disappear. Your robe clings to you now, damp with sweat beneath the arms. And salt has begun to collect on your lashes, making the world shimmer even more. You drink a single sip. Let it settle on your tongue. Let it remind you of all the water you did not have. By afternoon, the wind rises strong now, almost singing as it crosses the flats. You tie your scarf over your mouth, close your eyes more often than you open them. You trust the mule. It has walked this plain before, just as you have. There is a kind of magic in that, a mutual knowing, a pact made not in words but in shared survival. You reach the well near dusk, circle of stone, sunken into the ground, with a carved lid worn smooth by decades of hands. You draw water slowly, carefully. It smells clean. You let the mule drink first, as always, then rinse your face and hands, feeling the sting of salt in every tiny cut. You rest nearby, lighting no fire. There is nothing to burn, and the wind would never allow it. Instead, you wrap yourself tightly in your cloak and eat in silence. A soft piece of flatbread, the last bit of dried melon. You chew slowly, methodically. There is no rush in this world. It's only the waiting of the horizon. As the stars begin to show, you sit cross-legged with the message in your lap. You do not open it. You never do. But your fingers trace the embroidery on the cloth, delicate, careful work. Someone stitched this by lamplight, perhaps humming softly to themselves. Someone whose words now rest sealed beneath your hand. You think of the one who will receive it. Are they waiting? Are they afraid? Will they hold the letter to their chest before they open it? Or burn it unread? You will not know. You are the silence between their voices, the dust that carries what was once breath, a thin thread that holds them for just a moment in the same world. You lie back and look up. Stars here are so sharp they almost hurt to see. They blink slowly in a sky so clear, it feels like you might fall upward into it. You close your eyes and feel the salt beneath you, the wind above you, the message between you and the sky. And tomorrow, you will wake to dust again. The flats will stretch before you, and the road, though invisible, will still be there retched in your bones, drawn softly across the breath of the earth. You wake in the shade of a tree so large and old it seems to hum with memory. Its roots curl like sleeping serpents through the mossy earth, and the branches overhead cradle the dawn light in green gold shimmer. The air is thick with the scent of wet bark, fallen leaves, and something sweet, perhaps a distant bloom, or the syrupy breath of ripening figs. You breathe it in slowly, your chest rising with the forest's own rhythm, your body sore from sleep, but not unwilling to move. Your cloak is damp from the morning mist, and when you shift, droplets scatter from its folds like small jewels. The fire you lit last night is only ash now, ringed with blackened stones. A few birds have begun their cautious songs, warbling soft questions into the new day. You sit for a while before standing, reluctant to disturb the hush, as if the forest has not yet noticed you. When you finally rise, you do so gently, brushing the moss from your sleeves, checking the satchel slung close to your side. The letter is still there, wrapped in thin birch bark, sealed with wax pressed by a hurried thumb. The mark is crude, uneven, as though the one who pressed it had not done so before. The man who gave it to you had trembled as he handed it over. "Please," he whispered. "He's all I have left." He had spoken of a boy, his son, sick in a far village beyond the river and the forest and 3 narrow bridges. A healer lives there, the kind who sees things in smoke and dreams. The letter is for her, a plea. Father's trembling hope wrapped in bark and wax and the unspoken weight of desperation. You carry it now, and the path ahead winds dark beneath the trees. Your boots sink softly into the loam as you begin again, the earth springy and rich beneath each step. Ferns brush against your knees. The forest breathes with you. You walk in long, deliberate strides, careful not to rush, careful not to break the fragile harmony that threads between branch and leaf and wind. You pass under arches of vines and beneath canopies that filter the sun into dappled fragments. Dim places the light looks like stained glass on the forest floor. There are sounds here that only those who walk alone can hear: the creak of wood far overhead, the subtle shifting of damp stone, the rustle of something unseen weaving through the underbrush. But you are not afraid. The forest watches, yes, but it does not harm those who move with care. By mid-morning, the mist lifts and the air grows warm, heavy with the scent of sap and soil. You stop by a stream and wash your hands in its cold rush, letting the water run between your fingers. Tiny silver fish dart in the shallows, vanishing beneath rocks as your shadow passes. You drink deeply, the chill shocking your teeth, then sit on a smooth moss-covered boulder and eat a handful of almonds and half a pear. The sweetness of the fruit lingers on your tongue long after it's gone. As you walk again, you come upon signs of others who have passed: this way-worn carvings in the bark of trees, string of beads tied to a low branch, the soft remnants of prayer flags fluttering in the breeze. Each one speaks of someone who believed in something: guidance, protection, forgiveness. You pause by one, fingers brushing the faded thread, and bow your head for a moment. Not for belief, perhaps, but for the shared humanity it reminds you of. Around noon, the forest thickens. The trail narrows and becomes muddy, choked with roots and wet leaves. You hear frogs now, and insects buzz low by your ears. You quicken your steps where the ground allows, knowing you must reach the healer's village before dusk. Can't explain it, but something in the letter presses at your chest, a weight that grows heavier with each mile. It is not yours to worry over, but still, you do. You pass the first of the 3 bridges in early afternoon, a mossy span of planks bound with ivy and twine. It sways gently as you cross, the water below dark and fast. The second is narrower, nothing more than a log with handrails fashioned from willow branches. You move with care, your arms spread for balance, the forest holding its breath as you do. Before the 3rd bridge, you come upon a child. He is sitting on a rock near the trail, his knees drawn to his chest, his face damp with sweat. Skin is pale, waxen, and his lips tremble as he tries to speak. "The village," he rasps. "It's still far." You kneel beside him, your hand on his shoulder. His skin is warm to warm. Fever blooms in him like wildfire. You press water to his lips, and he drinks greedily, eyes fluttering closed with relief. You do not ask his name. You do not need to. You know? You carry him from there. Carefully, steadily, his thin arms limp around your neck, his head pressed to your shoulder like a sleeping bird. You move across the third bridge as the light begins to fade, the sun dipping low beyond the trees, painting the world in copper and shadow. When you reach the edge of the village, a woman in a long blue robe waits beneath a fig tree. She sees the boy and nods, already moving forward, her hands steady, her voice quiet. You hand her the letter. She does not read it. She only holds it close, then cradles the boy in her arms and turns away without a word. You watch them go. You stay until the door closes behind them and the village fades into the hush of evening. You walk back into the forest alone. The trees have changed in the twilight there. Trunks darker, their rustling deeper. But the path still welcomes you. The moss still gives beneath your feet like memory. You do not need thanks. You do not wait for news. The letter has been delivered. The silence is your reply. You sleep again beneath the great tree, the fire unlit, the stars hidden behind the canopy. And as you drift into sleep, the wind brushes against your face like a hand smoothing hair from a fevered brow. And the forest hums softly, as if it remembers every quiet act of mercy. You wake to the scent of incense, though there is no altar near, no flame, no offering smoldering in the dawn. Still, the perfume hangs on the air, faint sandalwood, crushed myrrh, a trace of something resinous and deep. It clings to your robe, your skin, even your dreams. You inhale slowly, as if drawing breath from the past itself. The road here is ancient. You feel it in your spine before your feet even touch the earth. Cobbled stones, mossed and cracked, lie beneath the dust. Pilgrims have walked this path for centuries, barefoot, kneeling, singing, weeping each, leaving behind some fragment of longing pressed into the ground like pollen into bark. You rise in silence, brushing the night's coolness from your shoulders, and stretch beneath the pale light of morning. The temple behind you is still in shadow, its carved gate half swallowed by ivy, stone guardians watching with blank, patient eyes. You have slept in its outer court, where the wind carries the echoes of chanting long ended. Monk left you a bowl of rice and pickled plum last night without a word, just a nod. They do not ask why you come, nor where you go. Messengers are a familiar presence. Here are solitary travelers between sanctuaries, carrying more than letters. You eat quietly, gratefully. The rice is cool now, clumped and sweet, and the plum tangy soft against your tongue. The meal grounds you. The stillness enfolds you. You drink a mouthful of water from the stone basin near the gate, the surface dimpled with fallen leaves. Today's message rests in a cloth-wrapped bundle at your side. It's not a scroll this time, but something heavier. Carved tablet, its symbols etched deep into wood blackened by age. You were told only to take it to the temple in the east, where the cedar trees grow in rows so perfect they seem arranged by stars. It must arrive before the full moon, and it must not be opened. That is all. You sling the bundle across your back, feeling its weight shift against your spine, and begin walking. The road stretches out in long, quiet rhythm, an undulating path lined by tall pines and slender birch, their leaves fluttering in early light. The air is cool, laced with the scent of moss and distant blossoms. Your feet fall into a steady cadence, soft, certain like the gentle tapping of a prayer drum. Somewhere far off, a bird calls, low and hollow, as if singing from a cup of clay. You pass small shrines along the way, each one worn by time and reverence. Some are no more than stone heads peeking through thickets of fern, others encased in wooden boxes with roofs bowed by rain. People have left offerings here, coins dulled by weather, smooth stones, bits of rice, knotted ribbons. You stop at one shaped like a sleeping fox, its eyes closed in eternal dreaming. Bow your head, not as a believer perhaps, but as a guest. The hours pass softly. The sky deepens to blue, then begins to burn with noon's slow fire. You walk through patches of shadow and light, your thoughts moving with the rhythm of your steps. Sometimes you recall other roads, their temples, the one with the roof made of green tiles, where the wind made music as it passed, the one carved into the cliff face where the bells rang without hands. And always you recall the faces of those who entrusted you with their silence. You think of the tablet. What message does it hold? A sacred name, a warning, a memory too weighty for the living to carry? You will never know. It is not yours to read, only to bear. By mid-afternoon, the trees give way to open hills, grasses ripple in waves, and wildflowers nod their sleepy heads as you pass. The path is less distinct here, half lost among tufts of golden green, but you know the direction. The temple lies beyond the third hill, where the cedar groves begin and the light grows strange in the late hours. You crest the final rise just as the sun begins its long descent, casting the land in honeyed haze. And there at the far edge of the field, where the earth dips and rises once more, you see the sloping roofs of the eastern temple, dark wood glinting where it catches the light. You let out a breath you didn't know you were holding. The weight on your back suddenly feels heavier, as if the message senses its destination. You descend slowly, savoring these final steps. A narrow bridge spans a stream near the gate, its railings carved with faded lotus blooms. You cross it with care, listening to the water beneath, its voice soft and constant. A monk greets you at the outer courtyard. His robe is saffron, his eyes calm and clouded with age. He says your name like it is something he has remembered from a dream. Yo goes. And he bows in return. You kneel before him and unwrap the cloth bundle. The carved tablet rests in your hands like a sleeping heart. You do not look at the symbols. You offer it with both palms, your head lowered in quiet surrender. He takes it without question. You have come in time, he says, voice thin and worn as parchment. Tonight the moon will rise full. You nod. There is nothing more to say. He turns. Carrying the tablet into the temple, his bare feet soundless against the polished wood, you remain in the courtyard as the shadows lengthen. The scent of cedar hangs in the air now, warm and earthy. You sit with your back against a column and feel the coolness of stone seep into your bones. A bell chimes as dusk falls. A single, resonant note. You close your eyes. You sleep there, beneath the eaves of the eastern temple, while the wind stirs the pine needles and the moon climbs silently overhead. You do not dream. And tomorrow, you will walk again. Another temple, another burden, another path traced in the hush between prayers. The road never ends. But for now, you are still. You wake to a sky of white and silver, not because the sun has risen, but because snowlight has seeped through the fabric of your tent, bright, cold, diffused, as though the sky itself has turned to quiet flame. You listen for a moment, still curled within your woolen blankets. There is no wind, no birds, no voices, only silence, vast, soft, complete. You know this kind of morning? It comes after snowfall, when the world holds its breath. You rise slowly, every motion thick with stiffness, joints cracking gently as you stretch. The tent is rimmed with frost, delicate as lace, each thread of fabric sparkling with thin ice. You breathe into your hands, warming your fingers, then unlatch the flap to greet the snow. It is everywhere, smooth and pale and untouched, rolling over the mountains like a sleeping sea. The trail you followed yesterday has vanished beneath it. The fire pit is buried. Even your boots left just outside the door are half submerged. You dig them out, knock the ice from their sides, and slide your feet in, feeling the cold wrap around your toes like old cloth. Your horse snorts nearby, snow dusted over her mane, breath rising in plumes. She stamps a little as you approach, impatient for movement. You brush her coat gently with your gloved hand, whispering soft words into her ear, the same ones you always speak in mornings like this, kind of ritual, meant less for her and more for yourself. You check the saddlebags, their straps hardened by the frost. Everything is still. Secure your food, your flask, your maps. Tucked inside your chest wrap, close to the warmth of your ribs, is the letter. Thin, light, bound in parchment and twine. A farewell not spoken, a voice caught in ink because the lips that should have spoken it never did. You remember the old woman who gave it to you? She waited by the village gate as you arrived, as if she'd been standing there all morning. Her face was lined like bark, her hands small and quiet. For my sister, she said. She does not know he died. She left before the frost came. I want her to hear it from someone who remembers him with warmth. You did not ask who he was. You never do. But her hands lingered on the letter before she let it go, pressing it into your palms like something too tender to speak of aloud. Now you carry it across the high pass, through snowfields and stone and sky. You break camp in silence. The tent folds stiffly, the stakes hard to pull from frozen ground. Your breath clouds around you. The sun has begun to rise, though you cannot see it, only a faint glow behind the clouds, like the memory of warmth. You mount the horse, and she begins to walk, hooves crunching through the crust. The pathless snow unfolding ahead in quiet resistance. The mountain stretches out in every direction, all shadow and slope, its ridges smoothed by the night's snowfall. The trees here are rare and stunted, their branches gnarled, their needles rimed in white. They look like ghosts of themselves, caught in mid-prayer. You guide the horse slowly, carefully, always watching the ground ahead. The pass is treacherous, too narrow in places, too steep in others. Snow hides the ice beneath. You've done this before. Your eyes learn to read the softness, the sheen, the barely there breaks in the white that reveal what lies beneath. They move like water through this world, slow and patient and without sound. Mid-morning brings a moment of brightness. The clouds thin slightly, and the mountains ahead emerge tall, layered, vast. You stop for a while to rest the horse, letting her graze on what little grass peeks through a wind-blown patch. You chew on hard bread and a sliver of dried apple, the sweetness sharp on your tongue, cold nips at your lips, but you've grown used to it. You unwrap the letter and hold it in your hands, not to open it, but to feel it again. The parchment is cool and slightly stiff. You wonder what it says. You always do. You pictured the sister, maybe in a valley town, surrounded by fruit trees and wood smoke. Never expecting this winter message to find her, never knowing her brother's breath has already left the world. There is sorrow in the stillness today, but not the kind that overwhelms. It is quiet, distant, like a bell ringing far down the valley. You press the letter back to your chest and ride on. By afternoon, snow begins to fall again. Light at first, drifting in wide, lazy flakes that melt as they touch your gloves. Then heavier. The sky darkens, and the wind rises. You pull your scarf higher, draw your hood tight, and urge the horse forward. The trail narrows, but you know this part of the pass. The frozen lake lies just ahead, flat, white vast, and beyond it, the first descent. You reach the lake just as the storm deepens. Snow whirls around you now, dancing in tight spirals, hiding the edges of the world. The lake's surface is slick, a skin of ice beneath a thin crust of snow. You dismount and lead the horse by the reins, moving carefully, listening for that terrible sound, the creak of betrayal beneath your feet. But it doesn't come. The lake holds your weight. You cross in silence. The other side is forested again, and the snow softens beneath the trees. You find a hollow between two stones and make camp there as night begins to fall. You feed the horse, rub down her legs, whisper your thanks. She leans into you gently, as if she, too, understands the importance of what you carry. You light a fire with difficulty, your fingers stiff, the kindling reluctant, but it catches. The flames are small, hungry, warm. You sit beside them, unwrap the letter one more time, not to read, not to guess, but simply to remind yourself that it is real, that this message still waits to reach the one for whom it was meant. Somewhere beyond the mountain, beyond the snow and the long roads and the echoing sky, someone lives who does not yet know they are mourning, and you are the silence that travels toward them, sleep wrapped in wool, firelight flickering against your eyelids, the letter close. The snow drifts past the edge of your shelter, wind weaving lullabies through the trees. And tomorrow, you will ride again, downward this time, toward the living, toward the waiting, toward the voice that has not yet heard the ending. It never got to speak. You wake to the scent of dry earth and sun-baked stone, a sharp sweetness that settles deep in your lungs like a memory of fire. The air is still, heavy with heat, even though the dawn is just beginning to brush the horizon with pale pink and gold. Around you, the desert stretches endless waves of sand and rock, shifting and shimmering beneath the slow awakening light. Your tent flutters softly in a faint breeze, the canvas thin and worn, carrying the faint dust of 1,000 journeys. You step outside, your feet sinking slightly into the warm sand, each grain a tiny sunburnt jewel beneath your touch. The air tastes of resin and dry time, carried on a wind that seems to speak in whispers only the patient can hear. The caravan is already stirring. Camels shift in the soft sand, their breath rising in gentle puffs. Their thick coats ripple with the morning light, the coarse hairs catching golden shadow. The handlers move quietly, adjusting loads and speaking in low tones, their voices blending into the vastness like the soft rustling of desert grass. You gather your belongings with care. Your cloak, light and billowing, flutters as you wrap it tight against the morning chill, still lingering despite the desert's promise of heat. Tucked inside your satchel is a small scroll, sealed with black wax, its edges curled from travel. The message inside is a fragment of hope, a secret pressed between letters of sand and silence. You have been sent to carry this scroll to the oasis far to the east, where palm trees lean over wells deep as wells of memory, and where the desert's harshness softens to a gentle embrace. The journey is long, the sand shifting, the nights cold and full of stars that burn with a clarity no city light could ever mimic. As you mount your camel, the animal shifts beneath you, slow and steady. You settle into the familiar rhythm of movement, the sway and dip, the gentle rise and falls. The caravan begins to wind its way across the dunes. The sand ripples ahead like a living thing, waves of gold and ochre curling toward the horizon, ever-changing, yet somehow eternal. The sun climbs higher, turning the sky a vast, endless blue. The heat gathers like a pulse in the air, making the world waver and blur at the edges. The scent of warm stone and sun-baked leather mingles with the faint spice of cumin and cardamom carried in the satchels of your companions. You breathe deeply, the dry air filling your lungs with the rawness of the earth itself. At midday, the caravan pauses by a rocky outcrop, where shade pools like a secret blessing beneath twisted acacia. You dismount and sit on sun-warmed stone, untying the scroll to let its edges catch the breeze. The parchment is fragile, rough to the touch, ink faded but still resolute. You run your fingers over the words, prayers, warnings, a history wrapped in riddles and time. Around you, the desert hums with life you might never see. The soft skitter of a lizard's feet over sand. The distant cry of a hawk circling high above. The whisper of wind threading through ancient canyons. You close your eyes for a moment, feeling the sun's warmth seep into your skin. The steady heartbeat of the camel beneath you, the quiet promise of the path ahead. When the sun dips toward the west, the desert changes. Shadows stretch long and cool, carving patterns across the dunes like slow-moving water. The air softens, losing its harshness. And the stars begin to prick the sky with silver points, so many that they seem to spill down, touching the earth with light. You stop near a small oasis that glimmers like a jewel in the darkening sand. Palms sway gently, their fronds whispering secrets in the breeze. You dismount and walk barefoot to the edge of the water, dipping your fingers in and letting the coolness chase away the heat of the day. The scent of wet earth rises, mingling with jasmine and wild mint, carried on the night wind. Nearby, a woman waits by a fire, her face wrapped in a veil that glimmers with beads like drops of starlight. She sees you approach and nods a silent greeting, full of understanding. You hand her the scroll, your fingers lingering a moment on the worn parchment. She takes it carefully, reverently, and tucks it close to her chest. Without words, you know this message holds a secret, a fragment of an ancient promise, truth whispered only under the desert moon. She will guard it well. You settle beside the fire, letting the warmth seep into your bones. The camels kneel close by, their breath slow and steady in the cool night air. The woman hums a quiet tune, the melody weaving through the stars and the silence. You listen, letting the desert's stillness wrap around you like a soft shawl, and you think of the journey yet to come, the miles of shifting sand, the endless sky, the secrets held in silence. And as sleep begins to pull at your lids, you feel the desert's timeless pulse beneath youth's steady, unyielding rhythm of a world that holds both harshness and grace, loneliness and belonging. Tomorrow, you will rise again with the sun, carrying the secrets of the sands into the dawn. You wake to the soft murmur of waves, a gentle sighing that has been humming beneath your dreams like a distant lullaby. The air is thick with salt and seaweed, cool and damp against your skin. You unwrap yourself from your cloak, feeling the lingering chill of night dew on the wooden planks beneath you, worn smooth by countless footsteps and tides. You are at the harbor, a place where land and sea meet in a slow, careful dance, their edges blurring beneath the quiet morning light. Fishing boats, small and weathered, rock gently on their moorings, ropes creaking softly as they sway. Nets hang like faded curtains from the masts, heavy with the scent of brine and old fish. Your fingers trace the rough grain of the dock's edge as you stand and stretch, the wood cool and firm beneath your touch. The horizon is a pale wash of silver and rose, and the sky holds its breath before the sun rises fully. Salt air drifts in, carrying with it stories folded deep in the tide's whispers of far-off lands, of ships lost and found, of voices swallowed by the sea's vast silence. The message you carry is folded inside a leather pouch, tied tight with a thin strand of seaweed. It is a simple note, yes, but one that holds weight far beyond its size. A plea, a warning, a memory sent across the water from one harbor to another, a chain of trust that must not break. You step lightly, your footsteps muffled by the thick ropes and scattered shells that litter the pier. Fishermen begin their slow rituals, mending nets, sorting the catch, tending fires to warm their hands. Their faces are weathered like driftwood, etched with lines carved by sun and salt and long days spent listening to the sea's song. You pause by a small shrine at the dock's edge, a cluster of stones and shells arranged beneath a worn wooden cross. People come here to leave offerings: twisted pieces of coral, smooth river stones, scraps of cloth dyed with the colors of sunset. You add a tiny shell from your pack, a quiet prayer for safe passage and unseen guardians. A child runs by, bare feet splashing through shallow pools left by the tide. Laughter bubbles up, sharp and clear, then drifts away on the breeze. You watch for a moment, the sound weaving into the rhythm of waves, breaking softly on sand and stone. The journey ahead will take you across this harbor, onto the small boat waiting in the cove, a fragile vessel, its hull scarred but steadfast. You can smell the wood's history, the tar's sharp bite, and the faint tang of fish oil. The boatman waits silent, his eyes steady and deep as the sea itself. You hand him the pouch without a word. His fingers close around it, rough and sure. He nods once, a slow, solemn gesture, and pushes the boat off the shore. The oars dip rhythmically into the water, the splash soft and steady. You sit near the bow, the cool spray kissing your face. The sea stretches wide and endless, a vast mirror catching the early light. The wind pulls gently at your hair, carries the taste of salt and distant rain. Underneath you, the water moves in slow undulations, alive with hidden currents and ancient depths. You think of the message, how fragile it seems in this immense, shifting world, yet it is a thread that binds people across distance and silence, a fragile bridge between hearts that might otherwise remain unknown. The boat drifts through the harbor's mouth, past rocky cliffs streaked with lichen and tangled seagrass. You watch seabirds wheeling overhead, gulls and terns, their cries sharp and fleeting. The smell of the ocean deepens, rich with the breath of the tides and the promise of distant lands. Night will find you soon, and the harbor will quiet again. The boats resting against their moorings like tired birds settling into nests woven from rope and wood. You close your eyes for a moment, letting the sea's steady rocking lull you, a rhythm as old as the earth, as deep as memory. The message rests safe in your hands, a secret carried by the tides, waiting to be delivered to a shore that has yet to hear its story. And when you awake again, you will move with the dawn, guided by the whisper of waves and the pull of unseen currents. The sea holds its secrets close, but it carries you forward. Always forward, toward the next harbor, the next story, the next quiet truth waiting beneath the surface. You wake to a sky bruised with midnight blue, studded with stars that pulse softly, as if breathing in and out alongside you. The village lies beneath this quiet canopy, a handful of houses huddled close, their windows glowing with warm, flickering light. The air is cool and fragrant, carrying the faint scent of smoke and earth, the smell of damp stone and cedarwood. You step lightly along a narrow path, the ground soft beneath your worn sandals, moss cushioning your steps. The lantern in your hand casts a gentle circle of light, its flame dancing in the gentle night breeze. It is your only companion on this silent walk through the sleeping village, where shadows lean close, whispering stories in the dark. Each house you pass has its own secret warmth, the hearth fire's slow crackle, the scent of herbs drying from rafters, the low hum of a mother's lullaby carried through open windows. You imagine the lives inside dreams weaving quietly beneath blankets, soft breathing mingling with the night's stillness. The message you carry is folded carefully inside the lantern's hollow frame. Small wooden box sealed with a simple knot of twine. It holds a promise, a word of peace sent across the miles, a hope wrapped in careful hands. Tonight it will reach the one waiting for it, though neither of you will speak aloud the weight it carries. You pause before a low door framed by climbing ivy and silvered moonflowers, their petals soft and trembling in the night. The house is quiet, save for the faintest sound of breath, a heartbeat. You knock gently, your knuckles muffled by the cloth wrapped around your fingers. The door opens slowly, a pair of eyes catching the lantern's glow, wide and uncertain, yet filled with recognition. No words pass between you, none need to. The box is handed over with the reverence of a sacred trust, the flame of the lantern flickering as if to seal the exchange. The eyes meet yours for a moment, and in that silent glance a story unfolds, a story of loss, of waiting, of the long thread of memory that binds even the farthest hearts. You step back, the village unfolding once more around you, the winding paths, the slumbering trees, the soft murmur of the distant river. The lantern's light sways in your hand, a small beacon in the vast dark. You breathe in the cool night air, rich with the scent of earth and pine, the quiet promise of dawn yet to come. The village seems to breathe with you, alive in the stillness, holding its own secrets close, like you hold yours. And as you turn to leave, the lantern's flame flickers one last time, a silent farewell, whispered blessing carried on the night wind. You walk back through the sleeping village, the path unfolding beneath your feet like a ribbon of memory, the stars above guiding you gently home. Tomorrow, the journey will end. But tonight, beneath the vast, patient sky, you are part of something older than words, a quiet thread woven through time, a light carried softly in the dark,